Let me just say this straight. If your whole QA identity is, I find bugs before we ship, you're already behind, not a little behind, significantly behind, because in 2026, nobody's cutting a check for bug discovery. They're paying for risk control before the code goes out and while it's running in front of real users. And here's the part that stings a little. If you're only testing at the end of the cycle, you're not really a quality engineer. You're more like a historian. You show up, document what went wrong, and file a report. Cool job, except historians don't get promoted to quality leaders. So today, I promise we're going to talk about shift left and shift right in a way that actually makes sense. And by the end, you'll know exactly what separates a tester from a quality leader. Okay, so why are so many testers stuck? It's not talent, it's not effort. Most testers I've seen work incredibly hard. The problem is they're playing a game the market quietly stopped rewarding and nobody told them. Here's how I describe it. I call it the QA waiter model. Devs cook the feature, product plates it up nicely, and then QA walks in and goes, cool, I'll taste it now. And if it's undercooked, you send it back, and somehow everyone looks at you like you're the problem, like you're the one slowing things down. Sound familiar? That's not on you. That's the system. You were trained to be downstream, and downstream QA has two really painful problems. First, by the time you show up, the decisions are already locked. Architecture, data contracts, edge cases, dependencies, all cemented. You're not shaping the work, you're reacting to it. Second, you get measured by what you catch, not what you prevent, which means the best quality work you'll ever do, the risk you quietly killed in a design conversation, is completely invisible. Nobody sees it, nobody celebrates it. It just didn't happen. So you work harder, more test cases, more automation, more coverage, and it still feels like the release treadmill just keeps speeding up every sprint. That's the trap. And most testers don't even know they're in it. All right, let's get into it. And I want to keep this simple. One mental model, two directions. Shift left equals reduce risk earlier. Shift right equals detect risk faster once you're live. That's it. Two directions of leverage. Shift left is not QA attends agile ceremonies such as backlog meetings, product requirement meetings, and nods along. That's just being in the room. Real shift left is when you change the shape of the work before it turns into code debt. Here's a real example. Your team is building the apply coupon feature in checkout. Old school QA approach is you write test cases, automate some UI flows, and then 3 days before release, you find a bug. The discount applies twice if you refresh the page. Classic. Now, shift left leader approach is you ask 5 questions before anyone writes a line of code. 1, where's the source of truth for price, front end or back end? 2, what happens if the coupon service times out? 3, is the discount per item or per cart? 4, what's the rounding rule when it's a percentage? 5, and this one's important, what's the metric that tells us coupon failures are spiking in production? Now, you didn't just test earlier. You prevented an entire category of bugs and you made the system observable before it shipped. That's not testing, that's leadership. And there's real data behind this. There's published research showing that defects found later in the cycle cost significantly more to fix than ones caught early. The numbers aren't even close. Okay, now let's shift our focus to shift right. Here's the thing nobody really wants to say out loud. Your staging environment is lying to you. Different data volumes, different traffic patterns, different third-party behavior, different timing. Your pre-prod environment is basically a very convincing simulation of production. It's not production. And shift right is how smart teams deal with that reality, because real users, they do weird things. Networks fail at the worst possible moment. Dependencies degrade slowly and silently, and works on my machine, as charming as that phrase is not a quality strategy. Let's use login as an example. You can run valid user logs in successfully 1,000 times in pre-prod. Great. But shift right asks different questions. If login latency jumps from 200 milliseconds to 4 seconds, do we see that instantly? If the OAuth provider partially fails, do we degrade gracefully or do users just get a blank screen? If 2% of users are stuck in a redirect loop, do we catch that before it hits Reddit? That's the shift right mindset. And the tools that support it are logs, metrics, traces, feature flags, canary releases. Those aren't DevOps things. They're quality strategy. The Google SRE team literally built a whole framework around this. SLIs, SLOs, error budgets. It's shift right quality governance with a different name. Links in the description and it's free. Shift left and shift right aren't two separate philosophies you pick between. The leadership move is to connect them into a feedback loop. Production surfaces a real failure. You take that failure and convert it into a pre-prod check, a contract test, a unit test, a synthetic monitor, a data validation rule. You update a quality gate, you influence a design decision, and you reduce the chance of that thing ever happening again. That's how you stop being the person who tests features and become the person who engineers confidence into the system. And I want you to write this one down or screenshot it or whatever. Testers find bugs. Quality leaders design systems that make bugs expensive to create and cheap to detect. That's the whole career upgrade right there in one sentence. So what do leader level quality engineers actually do differently? They stop counting test cases and start owning risk outcomes. That's the shift. Focus on these three moves. Leader move number one, they pick the right checks, not the most checks. They think about the testing pyramid strategically. Fast, reliable checks at the unit and service level. Fewer brittle UI tests that break every time someone changes a button color. Strong contracts between services so integrations don't silently break. UI automation still matters, don't take me the wrong way, but it's not your whole identity. Leader move number two, they negotiate quality with numbers, not feelings. Instead of walking into a meeting and saying, I feel like this is risky, which by the way gets ignored every single time, they ask, what's our current failure rate on this flow? How often are we rolling back? What's our time to detect when something breaks in prod? What's our time to recover? When you speak in metrics, you stop being the blocker and you start being the risk partner. That's a completely different seat at the table. Leader move number three, they make quality a product feature, not a sign-off step. You're not testing after the work is done, you're shaping how the work ships. And here's a quiet reality check. If your team can't safely deploy small changes without a war room, you don't have a test coverage problem, you have a release design problem. Look, if you want to still be relevant and employable before 2027, stop chasing the title of fastest bug finder in the room. That role is shrinking. Back when I worked at the world's number one networking company in the late 2000s, we used to do these things called bug blitzes. The product was mature, bugs were rare. So management's big idea, pack every tester into a giant auditorium, test everything in sight, and whoever found the most bugs by end of day wins a prize. Hunger Games, but for QA. I'm so glad those days are behind. The market doesn't reward people who notice fires anymore. It rewards people who build buildings that don't burn and still install smoke detectors just in case. If that's the kind of engineer you're becoming or you want to become, stick around. This channel isn't just about tips and tricks, it's about transformation. See you in the next one.